Good morning. I hope you're having a great weekend. It's Sunday, which means it's Book Review Sunday. This week I read, or I should say I listened on Audible, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And this book is highly recommended. It's a bestseller, and I'm surprised I haven't read it. I think it was written in 2016, and the author is a world-renowned negotiator. He was with the FBI for 20 years. He's gone on to found the Black Swan, a negotiating and coaching company. And it's a really good book. I'll tell you right off the bat, this book might be better as a college course. The book was very dry, and it had a ton of really practical things to do, techniques that you would really need to study and practice to digest. And as such, I don't think it was a great book to read, to listen to on Audible. I much would have preferred being able to read the book, because there's so many formulas and processes that you want to use that just didn't come across as well in listening to the book as it might have if you're reading the book. And like I said, I can see this as a college course. I can see this as taking a semester to learn all these different techniques, and skills. But it was a great book, and the book, Chris Voss did a really good job about applying being a hostage negotiator with the FBI to how you use those same tactics and skills in business, or in sales, or in any relationship. How you can negotiate successfully, and it was a good book. And you know what, the person who read the book, I forget who it was. It wasn't the author; it was somebody else. But they had a very dry voice, and so it came across without emotion. And it's interesting, not only was there a ton of great stuff in it, but there was actually some really good stories about negotiations that Chris had participated in, or that his students now at Black Swan, who are corporate leaders, how they use the skills in negotiating. So those case studies were really interesting, but it was a hard listen to. Now there's 10 chapters in the book, and in Audible, each chapter is about an hour. So it was like I think the Audible was 9 hours. It's lengthy. It's a little bit dry. It's very much like a textbook, and I recommend reading it over listening to it. Now let's get to the book a little bit. The whole Chris did a really good job kind of walking you through the evolution of negotiating tactics and strategies, and to where he's come to that. Look, all negotiations are rooted in emotional intelligence and use psychological tactics, right? Because negotiation is really just a skill that influences human behavior. And it was interesting listening to the evolution of negotiating from pretty simple and primitive to it just really became very complex, and it was great. So some of the just key points in the book is and you're going to get the sense right now. I'm going to go through some of these key points, and you're going to see how they're very tactical. And each point, like in each chapter, there's like this 5-step process or this 6-step process, or go back to this technique. And so it was really interesting. But total empathy, or tactical empathy, I should say, which is just really trying to understand and acknowledge your counterpart's emotions. Calibrated questions, which are asking open-ended questions like how or what. I'll go into that a little bit. Mirroring, which is repeating words that people are saying. Really the importance of getting to know in negotiating. And then the book ends with Black Swans, which I'll end with too. So there's only 10 chapters. I'm going to give you just a quick taste of each chapter, and then we'll move on with the day. How's that sound? So chapter 1 is the new rules. And in this, it just talks about how, the negotiation strategies have evolved. They used to be really based on logic. You're like, okay, what's this person going to do logically? But in fact, people make decisions by emotions, not through logic. And so really, to be an effective negotiator, you have to help guide your counterpart's emotional state, and that's what that tactical empathy is about. Chapter 2 is being a mirror. When you mirror somebody, when you mirror them by repeating their words, you're starting to create rapport and trust with them, and you make them feel like they're in control. It diffuses tension. And so that's a technique, and he uses mirroring all the time through the books. And what happens, he builds these tools through the book, and he's trying to teach you a sequence, a way to sequence your negotiation. So you kind of see how he builds out the tactical empathy and then being a mirror, and that goes to the next thing is chapter is don't feel their pain, label it, and that's just in alignment with the other two is that a way to diffuse the negative tension and to build trust is by acknowledging the emotions that are out in the open. Like, you must be feeling this way, or I can imagine this is how you feel, or I understand you feel this way, type of thing. And so labeling is a really important tool in negotiating. Chapter 4 is beware of yes, master no. I'll give you an example here. And this is really typical of the chapters. He goes through yes. There's 3 types of yeses. There's counterfeit yes. I forget what the 3 are. There's 3 types of yeses. A counterfeit, I'm open to, or an actual yes. And he goes like, look, yes isn't the best. Yes isn't a good place. No is a really good place to start. Because when somebody says no, it makes them feel totally in control, and it makes them feel safe, right? If they have the power to say no, and no usually means no, I don't want to change what I'm doing. And change is scary. So no puts them in a comfortable space. But understand, no is just the starting, the invitation to have a dialogue. And no is actually what leads to having negotiation, right? Because you can get all sorts of counterfeit yeses and you're just pacified, but you haven't really achieved anything. And so he goes, and this was why a lengthy chapter, it was a full hour-long chapter on this one. Chapter 5, trigger the 2 words that immediately transform negotiation. This is really interesting, and I'll just get to the nut of this. He's like the 2 words that you want to hear, that that you're starting to get a connection with your counterpart, is that's right. You want them to say and acknowledge that you understand them. You want that ultimate affirmation. You want the person to feel like you totally get them. And so when they say that's right, that's when you really align with the other person's point of view, and that's when really negotiations can kind of start. Chapter 6, bend their reality. Now, bending their reality is just, using psychological tactics like framing and anchoring to bend their reality. He talks about anchoring all the time. Anchoring is a negotiating tactic. Let's say you're negotiating for a new car, and the car salesman wants to sell it to you for $16,000. Well, you want to anchor an absurdly low point. Like, you might go 8,000. Like, I'm going to anchor the low. You want to anchor the low or anchor the high as a starting negotiating tactic, and that then bends their reality. It gets them out of their comfort zone. So that's what anchoring is. A really good technique. And by the way, as was framing. Framing emphasizes fairness and urgency, and then anchoring kind of gets them unsettled. Chapter 7 is create the illusion of control. This is really important. If you want to actually be successful negotiating, you have to let the other person feel like they're in control. You do this by asking calibrated questions. Calibrated questions are a very big technique used in the book. And calibrated questions are like asking what or how. And his favorite question book when he negotiates, how am I supposed to do that? And so what you're doing is you're asking the counterpart to solve your problem. How can I do that? If it's a bank robber, we want $5 million in a helicopter in 5 minutes. How can I do that? How can I do that? And what happens when you start asking calibrated questions, their counterpart starts to negotiate against themselves, right? Because they start to try to solve your problem, and it's like they're negotiating with themselves, and they start to cut their price or their demands. 8 is a guaranteed execution. That is, of course, establish clear terms and actions to ensure follow through. Always bring up what are the obstacles for us being successful, what could go wrong, and always think of the worst case scenario and the best case scenario, but be prepared for both. Bargain hard. This is really interesting. This is in this we get into the book. Bargain hard is you have to do a ton of, to be a good negotiator. You have to do your research, and then you have to stand firm, and you have to use all these techniques and don't rush. If you use all these techniques, and in this chapter, I think he also introduces the Ackerman system. The Ackerman system is, okay, look, I'm an anchor low, I'm offer 50% of what I'm willing to offer, and then I'll go to 75, and then I'll go to, 90, and then I'll go to 100. It's 4 steps. That's not of how to present your offer. And so bargaining hard, there's a lot of tactics in that chapter. And I think he has some he has some collateral material you can go online and get. And then the last chapter is chapter 10. And chapter 10 was really interesting. And here's what the gist is. It is find the black swan. And he goes, the challenge in every negotiation is the unknown unknown. Like we don't know what we don't know. And until we can learn what we don't know, that we may not be able to get to the end of this negotiation. And so the unknown unknown is the most dangerous spot. There's the known, there's known unknown, and that was great. Just a couple, kind of quotes from the book. The most powerful tool you have in any negotiation is your ability to listen. Another good quote is he who has learned to listen has learned to negotiate. You can go to Chris Voss's website. It's Black Swan Group. There is a ton of collateral. You do have to sign up for it to get it, including, by the way, they have 14 pieces on how to negotiate if you're a real estate agent. They have a full workbook. It's free. You just got to register to get it. They do a ton of consulting for companies. They actually do, of course, hostage negotiations, private for people. They do a ton of training. He speaks all over the place. So never split the book is the difference. People say it's a game changer. It is. I could see studying this book. Like I said, I could see being in a class studying this book and learning these techniques. I'm going to have to get the hard copy and really do some highlighting and some notes in it so that I capture some of that a little better. But I enjoyed it. It's certainly worthwhile. And I know a whole bunch of people think this is one of the best books that they've ever read. So I recommend it. I hope you like this book review. When you get a chance, check me out on socials. That would be awesome. And with that, hope you have a great weekend. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks.